Hey, how is it going, guys? You are watching Gamers YouTube channel. Hope you all are having an absolutely fantastic day. Today I am gonna tell you about the best third-person shooter games of the generation. If you enjoy my video, please leave a like on my video, I would really appreciate it. So enjoy. Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain is an open-world stealth game developed by Kojima Productions and published by Konami. It was released worldwide for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One on September 1, 2015. It is the ninth installment in the Metal Gear series that was directed, written, and designed by Hideo Kojima. Following Metal Gear Solid V: Ground Zeroes, a standalone prologue released the previous year, as well as his final work at Konami. Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain is a stealth game in which players take the role of punished Venom Snake from a third-person perspective in an open world. The gameplay elements were largely unchanged from Ground Zeroes, meaning that players will have to sneak from several points in the game world, avoiding enemy guards, and remaining undetected. Included in Snake's repertoire are binoculars, maps, a variety of weapons, explosives, and stealth-based items such as cardboard boxes and decoys. Following one of the series' traditions, The Phantom Pain encourages players to progress through the game without killing, using non-lethal weapons such as tranquilizer darts to subdue enemies. Players may traverse the game world with vehicles such as jeeps and tanks, in addition to traveling on foot or on horseback, and as certain locations are mountainous, occasionally, players can opt to go rock climbing as a shortcut. They may call for helicopter support against enemy soldiers or request airstrikes that can bomb the target area or change the current weather. Snake can call on a companion set including Quiet, a silent female sniper with supernatural abilities. D-Horse, a horse capable of wearing armor and hiding. Snake during travel. D-Walker, a manned, highly agile mobile weapons platform that can provide heavy weapons support. And D-Dog, a wolf pup raised and trained on the new mother base to assist him in the field. The companion's abilities and their effectiveness will depend on the player's relationship with them. There is a large emphasis on tactics in The Phantom Pain. Resident Evil 2 is a 2019 survival horror game developed and published by Capcom, a remake of the 1998 game of the same name. It was released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One on January 25, 2019. Players control rookie police officer Leon S. Kennedy and college student Claire Redfield as they attempt to escape Raccoon City during a zombie outbreak. Resident Evil 2 is a remake of the 1998 game of the same name. Unlike the original, which uses tank controls and fixed camera angles, the remake features over-the-shoulder third-person shooter gameplay similar to Resident Evil 4 and more recent games in the series that allows players the option to move while using their weapons similar to Resident Evil 6. 1. The assisted and standard difficulty modes deviate from the original by featuring autosaves and allowing players to save as often as they would like inside safe rooms. If the player chooses to play on hardcore difficulty, players will be required to collect and use a finite number of ink ribbons to save the game's progress, much like in the original game. While exploring the police station, players can find and pick up items that can help them survive and escape. Certain items such as herbs and gunpowder can be combined together to make healing items and ammunition respectively. Items can also be inspected for clues, gaining access to certain areas or items hidden throughout the game, and can be discarded after use. Rise of the Tomb Raider is a 2015 action-adventure video game developed by Crystal Dynamics and published by Square Enix's European subsidiary. It is the sequel to the 2013 video game Tomb Raider and the 11th entry in the Tomb Raider series. Its story follows Lara Croft as she ventures into Siberia in search of the legendary city of Kites while battling the paramilitary organization Trinity, which intends to uncover the city's promise of immortality. Lara must traverse the environment and combat enemies with firearms and stealth as she explores semi-open hubs. In these hubs she can raid challenge tombs to unlock new rewards, complete side missions, and scavenge for resources which can be used to craft useful materials. Rise of the Tomb Raider is a third-person action-adventure game in which players control Lara Croft, who is on a quest to discover the legendary City of Tides. Combat is a major gameplay mechanic. Lara has a large variety of weapons at her disposal, including assault rifles, shotguns, and pistols, some of which have an alternate firing mode. Players may also utilize stealth to progress through portions of the game, using bows and arrows to take out enemies, creating distractions to draw enemy attention away from Lara, or hiding in bushes to evade enemies. Lara can use the environment to fight enemies, shooting explosive barrels, tearing down rope-wrapped structures with rope arrows, or ambushing enemies from high ground. She can also use her ice axe and combat knife to engage in melee combat with enemies. Completing objectives inside content and eliminating enemies give players experience points, XP. When players collect sufficient XP they level up, receiving a skill point, which can be spent on the game's 3 skill trees: Brawler, Hunter and Survivor. Brawler enhances Lara's efficiency with weapons, giving her abilities such as retrieving arrows from corpses and a steady aim, as well as boosting her resilience against attack, and unlocks new combat skills, such as dodge kill. Hunter gives her an advantage when dealing with the environments and animals. Survivor covers a wide range of skills such as creating incendiary bombs and setting booby traps. Lara learns new languages, enabling her to discover relics, such as coins, which can be traded for new equipment. Grand Theft Auto V is an action-adventure game played from either a third-person or first-person perspective. Players complete missions, linear scenarios with set objectives to progress through the story. Outside of the missions, players may freely roam the open world, composed of the San Andreas open countryside area, including the fictional Blaine County, and the fictional city of Los Santos. The world is much larger in area than earlier entries in the series. It may be fully explored after the game's beginning without restriction, although story progress unlocks more gameplay content. The single-player mode lets players control 3 characters: Michael DeSanta, Trevor Phillips and Franklin Clinton, criminals whose stories interconnect as they complete missions. Some missions are completed with only 1 character and others feature 2 or 3. Outside the missions, players may switch between characters at will by a directional compass on the HUD. Although this feature becomes restricted at various points throughout the story, the game may switch characters automatically during missions to complete specific objectives. A character's compass avatar will flash red if he is in danger and needs help, and flash white if he has a strategic advantage. Though players complete missions as any of the 3 protagonists, the more difficult heist missions require aid from eye-controlled accomplices with unique skill sets like computer hacking and driving. If an accomplice survives a successful heist, they take a cut from the cash reward and may be available for later missions with improvements to their unique skills. Some heists afford multiple strategies. In a hold-up mission, players may either stealthily subdue civilians with an incapacitating agent or conspicuously storm the venue with guns drawn. The player character crouched behind the vehicle while in combat. The head-up display elements are visible on screen. Players can take cover behind objects during firefights to avoid taking damage from enemies. Players use melee attacks, firearms and explosives to fight enemies and may run, jump, swim or use vehicles to navigate the world. To accommodate the map's size, the game introduces vehicle types absent in its predecessor Grand Theft Auto 4, such as fixed-wing aircraft. In combat, auto-aim and a cover system may be used as assistance against enemies. Should players take damage, their health meter will gradually regenerate to its halfway point. Players respawn at hospitals when their health depletes. If players commit crimes, law enforcement agencies may respond as indicated by wanted meter in the head-up display, HUD. Stars displayed on the meter indicate the current wanted level. For example, at the maximum 5-star level, police helicopters and SWAT teams swarm to lethally dispatch players. Law enforcement officers will search for players who leave the wanted vicinity. The meter enters a cool-down mode and eventually recedes when players are hidden from the officer's line of sight that displays on the minimap for a period of time. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a 2018 action-adventure game developed and published by Rockstar Games. The game is the third entry in the Red Dead series and is a prequel to the 2010 game Red Dead Redemption. The story is set in 1899 in a fictionalized representation of the Western, Midwestern, and Southern United States and follows outlaw Arthur Morgan, a member of the Van der Linde gang. Arthur must deal with the decline of the Wild West whilst attempting to survive against government forces, rival gangs, and other adversaries. The story also follows fellow gang member John Marston, the protagonist of Red Dead Redemption. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a Western-themed action-adventure game, played from a first- or third-person perspective. The game is set in an open-world environment featuring a fictionalized version of the Western, Midwestern, and Southern United States in 1899. During the latter half of the Wild West era and the turn of the 20th century. The game features both single-player and online multiplayer components, the latter released under Red Dead Online. For most of the game, the player controls outlaw Arthur Morgan, a member of the Van der Linde gang, as he completes numerous missions, linear scenarios with set objectives to progress through the story. From the game's epilogue, the player controls John Marston, the playable protagonist of the game's predecessor, Red Dead Redemption. Outside of missions, the player may freely roam the game's interactive world. The player may engage in combat with enemies using melee attacks, firearms, throwables, or explosives. Combat has been refined from the game's predecessor, and notable new mechanics consist of dual wielding and the ability to use a bow. The player is granted the ability to swim as Arthur, but not as John, a reference to the previous game, where swimming led to instant death.